Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
Carthy, you have
Garmaigat Laskan Corlagus, Bowalam, Buikas, Gaul Leson, Chapta Coppinger, as Diasperact, Harcher, and Gesh Tabakta Shaw. Mar Coffeemage Jira a her le Ferregan and I, Mna August Colini. I want to thank the movers of this motion, and particularly Deputy Coppinger, who has an unimpeachable record on this issue. And I also want to welcome the guests to the public gallery today. Tackling violence against women and girls must be a priority across our society. Every day, women and girls face violence in the form of domestic and sexual abuse, stalking, harassment and intimidation. Figures that were revealed by the Minister for Justice to me last week showed that the number of emergency calls made to Gardaí reporting domestic abuse rose from 44,000 plus in 2020 to over 65,000 last year. Hundreds of women have died violently in Ireland. Many were killed in their own homes. Most were killed by a man known to them. 274 women have died violently in this state since 1996. So as we look at these figures, women will rightly wonder how much has really been achieved in the years since the government's so-called zero tolerance strategy was announced, because women do not feel safe, and often they are not safe. So we have to do better in terms of preventing domestic and gender-based violence. We have to do better in terms of supporting victims of such violence to getting to safety and to rebuilding their lives. And we have to do better in terms of ensuring that victims of gender-based violence get the justice that they deserve in a timely manner that does not compound their trauma. It's crucial that CUAN, the new statutory government agency that's dedicated to tackling and reducing domestic, sexual and gender-based violence, is provided with the resources needed to do its job, particularly in the areas of prevention. The government also needs to ensure that Garda Síochána and the justice system have the resources and the training to better deal with these issues and these violent attacks. We know that the long delays in our courts prevent survivors from rebuilding their lives. Domestic violence refuge centres, and I hear what our previous speaker have said, but they often represent the only place where those experiencing domestic violence can find safety. There are still far too many places, and there are still counties with no refuge at all, including Cavan and Monaghan. The figures for domestic violence for the Cavan, Monaghan, Louth region, also revealed to me by the Minister last week, reinforced the demand for urgency with regard to opening domestic violence refuges in both Cavan and Monaghan, because these figures showed that this region has the highest number of calls outside of the Dublin region. And the reason why that's important, Minister, is because when women present, sometimes they feel that they have nowhere to present other than to their local TD's office, which in itself is a scandal, because we have to deal with people given their most intimate, private details in a setting that isn't appropriate, and they ask directly what's their options. And oftentimes they are left with the conclusion themselves, having dealt with all the statutory agencies, is that the option provided to them is either to make themselves homeless or to return back. So the lack of availability of affordable housing is one of the greatest barriers and challenges for women and children who are victims or survivors of domestic abuse. It also means that women and children are often forced to remain in refuges for longer than is needed, and in some cases, as I say, the option of returning to the abuser is actively considered, and in previous very tragic cases it was what happened. Supporting the long-term housing needs, therefore, of survivors of domestic violence must be given the priority that it deserves. In dealing with the issues of domestic and gender-based violence, it's also important that we listen to the survivors of rape, sexual abuse and domestic violence. We need to listen to them, particularly in terms of their experience of the justice system. Survivors of rape, sexual assault and domestic violence and their families have raised a very important number of very important issues which need to be dealt with by the Oireachtas as a matter of urgency. And I'll be proposing that the incoming Justice Committee, when it's established, actually meets with survivors who have contacted us in advance of today's debate, because there are clearly a number of areas where legislative changes are required including dealing with the re-traumatising impact of victims, counselling notes being disclosed in rape and sexual assault cases, the blocking of parental and inheritance rights for those who kill their spouses, and the need to create a domestic violence register. It's also clear from the survivors that the disclosure of counselling notes during a trial severely compounds their trauma. The commitment in the programme for government to deal with this has to be fast-tracked. And what I'll say finally, Minister, is if the government are intent on fast-tracking, this side of the House will accommodate them.
Thank you, Deputy.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.